Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Sparks in the Dark podcast, a place where we have conversations about reading and writing and do our best to deepen our thinking about those two subjects. We're so glad that you're here with us. We're so glad that you're here to be a part of this because we know that, like us, you want to deepen your thinking about those two things as well.
So this is our catch-up episode where Travis and I wanted to catch all of you up with what we've been doing since the release of our book on June 1st, and what's been going on with us. But first, I guess we should probably introduce ourselves. Oh, and we're also going to share some books we've been reading recently.
Absolutely. So I'm Travis Crowder. I'm a 7th grade English and social studies teacher in a small town in western North Carolina. I'm a big reader, as I think most everyone who's been on our show or has attended knows, and I'm so excited today to share some of the great reads that I've had over the past several weeks.
And I'm Todd Nesloney. I am an elementary school principal in Navasota, Texas, and I am super pumped to share about some of these books and kind of what Travis and I have been up to collaboratively over these last couple weeks as well. So, Travis, we got to go to a pretty amazing conference where it was actually our first full-on presentations together. Yeah. We got to do a book signing. So tell everybody where we were.
All right. So this was, I want to reiterate the fact that this was our debut with Sparks in the Dark. Okay. So it wasn't just that we were attending this conference. We were there and we were presenting at this conference. So we were in Austin, Texas, at the Tessa Conference. And for those of you who don't know, Tessa is a conference for elementary administrators. But it wasn't just principals who were there, which I thought was a really neat thing. I mean, there were several types of people. I met several people who were, they were principals and assistant principals, but I did see some coaches, instructional coaches, and I did see and meet and get to talk to some people who served in an administrative capacity, maybe not just as a principal or an assistant principal.
Yeah, so Travis and I got to lead several sessions. We talked about some stuff that we think kids deserve, how to tell your story. We got to talk about Sparks in the Dark. And so if you didn't know, our new book, Sparks in the Dark, came out June 1st. There's Travis. He's got a pic holding it up. That book we are so proud of, just filled to the brim with reading and writing instructional ideas, lessons for elementary, secondary, campus-wide, different subject areas. And we are so proud of the work that we've put into that, and to see the remarks online as well has been pretty exciting as we've been following the Sparks in the Dark hashtag.
The beautiful thing about it, though, Todd, I'll have to add this, is the amount of joy that's been around this book. People reading it and capturing a part of their reading life, because that's the beauty of it, right? I mean, you want to be able to capture, not just read it, but be able to capture part of it and share that with everybody. So seeing people's reactions, seeing how they're feeling, and also seeing I can't wait to get into my classroom and do this, or seeing people say this book has me on fire, and it's not because of heartburn. It's because that's made them feel.
Oh, Travis got jokes this morning.
It makes them feel something. It makes them feel, alive, and I think that's what you and I have wanted most from this. Not just to write something that would give some people some good ideas. We wanted it to put them in a space where they felt, I can do this, and I'm inspired. I want to get back in my classroom, and I want to do this, and I want to get kids excited about reading and writing.
Well, and it was a big hit at TEPSA. This is my third book, but this is Travis's first. And it was super exciting because on day one of the conference, we sold out of Sparks in the Dark. And and I had brought some extra boxes, thank goodness. So we were able to put some more in the conference bookstore. But it was pretty neat just to get to meet people and sign books and things like that. But it was also one of my favorite parts, though, of the conference was Travis and I partnered with Scholastic, and we got to host a Books and Bordeaux event where we worked with administrators on what is a book talk, how to give a book talk, and of course they were surrounded by wine and snacks. So, but our goal was 100 people to have at this event, and we had Travis, close to 200 actually show up. They had to bring in extra chairs, and it was pretty phenomenal. I don't know about you, Travis, but I was thinking that we were going to have to it was going to be pulling teeth to get some of these teachers to really get out there and do those book talks. But they were so into it, and they did amazing when they actually gave their book talks.
They did, and they came in and they were excited. That was the thing. It was almost like they were like, okay, I don't know what this is. I'm not sure what to expect. But the moment we shared it with them, there was this palpable energy in the room. Like they were talking to each other. They were wanting to share these books. And we were in a bit of a time crunch, right? We only had about an hour, but we had to stretch that time a little bit because of the book talks that we were trying to give there at the end, or the presentation of the book talks at the end. But I was inspired by them, and it was also so easy. Like now you can take this book talk, like we've shown you something that took us 5 minutes to explain to you, and now you can take it into your school and think about the lives you're going to influence, the educators' lives you're going to touch, the kids' reading lives that you're going to improve. That's all because of the power of the book talk.
Yeah, and and it was such a cool experience to be in a room full of educators so excited about books. And it was great to be able to tell them, hey guys, you can go back and do this tomorrow on your campus, and it doesn't cost you any money, and you've already got the books, which is why I'm so excited that for this episode, we are going, hold on just a minute. Hey, Annie. I'm at school recording this, and I'm in the gym, so there's people running around everywhere yelling. So I was trying to see. You couldn't hear them, could you?
No, I couldn't.
They were loud. Anyway, but that's why Travis and I wanted to spend some time today as we brought the show back into the limelight, just being able to book talk some books ourselves that we've been checking out.
Absolutely. So you shared your favorite part, Todd. Let me give you a little bit of mine, and mine's a little bit different. There was so much about this conference that I really loved. And narrowing it down to just one thing, one event, one presentation, I loved all of them. The thing that I loved, though, was the connection that I made with so many different people. And being able to share with them, people coming up to me after sessions and talking about how inspired they were by what we had to say, wanting to talk about our book, wanting to get some, just mentioning how excited they were and how this was changing the way that they were seeing reading and writing in the classroom. You and I have read a lot of stuff. We've read a lot of middle grades books, a lot of YA, and a lot of professional material. And so, I think you and I feel that this is a conversation that's been going on for a long time, but the fact that our book can be a part of that and can actually help fuel that fire for that passion for reading and writing, that's some good stuff. That's some great stuff, and it's inspirational.
Well, and when you write something out, you never actually know if people are going to connect with it or if you're just going to sound like an idiot. And so it's always that nerve-wracking moment of, please let somebody like what we put on the page. So
it's just one person, if just one person likes it.
Exactly. Besides our families.
Right. Right.
And it was fun to present with Travis because Travis and I try to keep it real chill on the show. But we are very sarcastic with each other, and it tends to come out a little bit in our presentations. And so that was fun getting to present together too. And so where are we going to be next, Travis? Is it ILA?
We'll be at the International Literacy Association Conference, which is also in Austin, Texas. Yeah. And
then we'll be presenting again at NCTE in November, which will be in Houston, Texas. So you'll be in Texas several times this year.
I'll be in Texas a lot. I'm going to have to get dual citizenship. North Carolina peeps are going to be getting jealous.
So let's talk some books, Travis. So tell me one book that you've read recently that you love. And so Travis and I have about 5 or 6 to share, but we're going to book talk these like on fire and just get them out to share with you.
All right, so the first one I'm going to talk about is Between Shades of Grey by Ruta Sepetys. And I read this book. It's been a while since I've read it, but the reason that I'm mentioning it today is because it is lingering inside of my heart. And it's one of those, and I think we all know that whenever something lives inside of your heart, you got to share it. You got to talk about it. And this is a book that it's a book of World War II. It's historical fiction, and it is for young adults. The main character in the book, her family is ripped from their home. They are not it's not a book of Germany during World War II. And that's one of the reasons that I really liked this one. It was a book about people who were terrorized and subjugated by the Russians. And so at the beginning of it, Stalin is like this terrible force inside of their country and inside of their community. They're forced from their home. They're forced onto a train. They start to make their way throughout the country and actually make it up about as far north in Russia as they can go. And you feel like you're cheering them on, hoping that if something's going to happen, they're going to live. Nothing bad is going to befall them. This book gave me all the feels. I read the last 50 pages in tears. And if you want a story of triumph, if you want a story that's going to make you cheer characters on, if you want a story that's going to give you insight into what life was like for people, see through the eyes of someone during a time period that's considered horrific, Between Shades of Grey by Ruta Sepetys. I cannot recommend it enough.
And Travis told me I had to read it, and I read it, and it was fantastic. So I would definitely recommend it as well. Everything Travis said is totally true. So the first book I want to book talk now, some of you may have heard of the book The Wild Robot by Peter Brown. It is a wonderful book for elementary students, a great read aloud. It'll just rip your heart out with just how beautiful and simple it is. But it's about a ship of robots who crashes on an island, and all the robots die or they're not working except for one, and that's the wild robot. And the robot ends up living on the island and learning how to speak animal and making friends with the animals on the island. And it's a really powerful story of family and what family can really look like, and friendship and learning in new circumstances. And he released this year the sequel called The Wild Robot Escapes. And in my opinion, that book was even better than the first one. And so if you've read The Wild Robot, get the sequel, The Wild Robot Escapes. If you haven't read it, then you've got to go and read both. They're super quick, easy reads for adults, but fantastic read alouds in a classroom.
All right. So, and by the way, let me just say, for reluctant readers, The Wild Robot is an excellent choice. This past year, I had several reluctant readers who picked up that book and read it, and they really liked it. I didn't get the sequel of it until a little bit later, and by the time I got it to them, they had already built this reading ladder where they had moved up above the, I don't want to say the quality, because the writing of it is good. Like the level that it's at, they had moved up above that, but they really did like it. This is I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson. And I'm going to give a shout out to all of the people in the Book Love Foundation Book Club, who, which is, that is hosted by Penny Kittle. And I'd get it in there. Of course.
We've got to throw Penny Kittle into every single episode.
This is part of our book club, our reading list this summer. And I'll Give You the Sun is by Jandy Nelson. And it is a gorgeous book, told in in alternating perspectives, one of Noah and his sister Jude, and they are twins. They are, it takes place first when they're 13 years old. Part of the story takes place in their 13th year, and then the other part of the story takes place when they're 16. They are both very creative individuals. And the beauty of this book, one of the things that I loved about it, the many things, is that they are artists. And so they talk to each other in artistic terminology. They'll talk in terms of paintings and brushstrokes and the way that something looks, contour. I mean, it's the language of it is absolutely gorgeous. Jude in their 13th, when they're 13, she's the popular one, and Noah is the outcast. But in their 16th year, whenever they fast forward, and it's, it flashes forward and back in time throughout the novel. When they're 16, that role has reversed. Noah is then the popular one, and Jude is the one trying to find out who she is. So there's a bit of an identity struggle. There is, questions about who we are and what connects us, what love is, and, the people who stick with us are the people that we should hold tight and hold near. It's a gorgeous book. Can't recommend it enough either.
I haven't read that one. I'll have to add that to my list of 300 books you told me to read recently.
Yeah, Todd, the funny thing about it is I was born with a reading list that Todd and I will never finish, because every time I'm done with one, I'm like, you got to read this one. And then 3 days later, okay, you got to read this one and this one and this one.
Yep. Okay, so I want to recommend a picture book right now. And what Travis and I love to talk about with picture books is this isn't just an elementary thing. And so if you are a secondary teacher, that doesn't mean, oh, well, I can tune out. because I don't need to read picture books in my class. Picture books are great for any age, any grade level, even adults. And so one picture book that I found recently that I fell in love with is one called Uni the Unicorn, and it's by Amy Rosenthal. And I just found out today that it actually has a sequel as well. But I thought it was such a unique story because it's about this unicorn who lives with all these other unicorns, and everybody always makes fun of Uni because Uni believes in this mythical creature called little girls. And every other unicorns make fun of the Uni because they say, oh, well, there's no such thing as little girls. You're just crazy. And then what you find out and happen with the story is that there's also a little girl who's made fun of constantly because she believes in unicorns, and everybody tells her that they are crazy. And the kind of crossover between the two worlds and between the unicorn and the little girl, it's just a creative story. And unicorns are so in right now. If you were to read that in elementary class, that would be their number one book, just because the illustrations are beautiful. But unicorns are a hot topic right now. So I just thought that was a great little picture book to read.
And what an amazing way to, with older readers, talk about irony, talk about, blending two different storylines into one complete cohesive narrative. I think, and the images in that book are gorgeous. So not only is it a great story, the images are gorgeous. And speaking about Amy Krauss Rosenthal, though, I want to share this book, which is called Encyclopedia of an Ordinary Life. Amy Krauss Rosenthal she wrote, unfortunately, she died last year, and tragically, she had ovarian cancer. But she wrote for children, but she also writes for adults. And this is one of the ones that is for adults. I would caution you, this is one for you, an adult reader. Depending on the reading maturity of the students that you teach, I would hesitate giving this to them unless you feel that they are a bit older, they can handle it. But what she does throughout this is she takes each letter of the alphabet and she begins to, much like an encyclopedia is, she structures it like an encyclopedia would be, where each letter is a portion of her life. And she talks about, and it's told through humor. Some of it is incredibly humorous. Some of there, it's has some sadness that weaves throughout it. So well written. Great to use. I've used pieces of this as mentor texts with my writers to say, okay, this is how Amy Krauss Rosenthal made this text, and this is how she wrote about a part of her life. Let's see if we can do that with our writing, or just give it a try. But once again, another one that I think you would enjoy, but this is for adult readers primarily, so keep that in mind.
Awesome. Thank you. So I want to share another one by Kwame Alexander. So I love Kwame as an author. His books, Booked and Crossover, about brothers. One is about one brother, one's about the other brother, soccer player, basketball player. Great books to hook reluctant readers. I have had kids who have said they don't want to read anything, there's nothing of interest, and then they get started on Crossover or Booked, and they can't put it down. Plus, it's a pretty thick book, but there's only like 10 to 20 words per page because it's written in poetry. But it's written in poetry that's really easy to understand. It's really, you get brought into the story. You connect deeply with the characters. And he just released his brand new one called Rebound, which is a prequel to Booked and Crossover about those two boys' father. And that was by far my favorite Kwame Alexander book. Just with how beautifully it was written and the storyline of a young man losing a parent and trying to work through that grief. And then I couldn't put it down. It was one of those that I finished in one sitting. And I brought it back. I book talked it with my 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. And then we had a book fair, and it was the number 1 selling book. Sold out constantly. They had to keep re-bringing new copies because everybody wanted it because they all loved Booked and Crossover. So Rebound is a great book for any age, 3rd grade probably and above, to check out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the book Solo by Kwame Alexander is also another amazing book. One that follows Blade, a teenager, and his dad, who is a rock musician, very famous, and a search for identity, a search for meaning, which Kwame Alexander does beautifully in his books. So, I just want to add to what Todd said. If you read the Crossover and Rebound and you really like it and you're thinking, all right, what is something that older readers, maybe they read that and they're ready for something that is a bit more sophisticated. Not that Crossover and Rebound and Booked are not amazing books, but
This is
Solo
the second
is.
time to mention this now, Travis.
But
My books are just as good for older readers as yours.
They are. They are. I just, if they want something that is, you get what I'm saying. You're just giving me a hard time. All right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about nonfiction, another nonfiction text. One that I would say that junior high, upper junior high, and up into high school, and primarily for adults, but those readers could read that. It's the book Hunger by Roxane Gay. When I was sitting in the airport in Austin getting ready to head back to North Carolina, I read this book cover to cover, and it was searing. It's probably one of the most real things I've ever read before in my life. But Roxane Gay is an opinion writer for the New York Times, or a contributing opinion writer for the New York Times. She's written fiction. She's written nonfiction. She has such an interesting story from childhood all the way up through the now. She's currently in her 40s. But whenever there was a traumatic event that happened to her when she was 12 years old, and in order to create boundary, if you will, she turns to food and begins to make that her life. I cried, and Todd and I always, we know something is good if we cry in the last 30 plus pages of a book. This one absolutely just, it empowered me in a way that I didn't think it was going to empower me. It's a lot about identity, which seems to be a theme with the books that we're sharing. But it's a lot about identity. It's a lot about knowing yourself. And it's a lot about answering those questions about who makes us who we are and who owns this, and especially this.
Awesome. Thank you. So I want to share another picture book. And this is one that I gave away at TEPSA because it's a brand new book, but it is such a great story. It's called I Am Enough, and it's by Grace Byers.
I love that book.
The imagery in this book, it goes through and talks about, I may not be this, but I can be this. I may not be this, but I can be this. And just learning how to be accepting of yourself. But it's a book full of girls, and it's girls of all shapes and sizes, all skin colors, hair color, things that they're into. And I thought it was just such a neat portrayal of not just your stereotypical gender roles, but also not just the really attractive cartoon characters that so often can be seen. But it's I Am Enough by Grace Byers. Beautiful book. I had a a kindergarten teacher that I gave it to towards the end of the year. And she said, that is the book my kids ask me to read every single day because it's just a really great and uplifting story.
All right. So the other book that I'm going to share is also primarily for adult readers, but also more mature ones. I've been reading a lot of stuff. Like summertime is like my chance to, all those books that wind up getting stacked up in my classroom or here in my apartment. Todd, you know about all those stacks of books throughout my apartment. This is my time when I have a chance to go through them. This is Warlight by Michael Ondaatje. And for those of you who are listening who may have been familiar with The English Patient, Michael Ondaatje wrote that. It's probably his best-known work of fiction. Warlight is a novel of World War II. It takes place after World War II has ended. And Nathaniel and his sister Rachel, at the very beginning of the book, their mom is packing. She says that she and their father must leave for Singapore. They've got something they've got to do, and they got to leave. And she's throwing all this stuff into a trunk. And they're going to be staying with this older gentleman that the kids began to call the Moth, partly because of the way that he looked. Well, she throws Nathaniel's mom throws all this stuff inside of the trunk. And she says, all right, the day comes where they're going to part. And she leaves, and they're sad and all sorts of stuff. And one day Nathaniel is rummaging around down in the cellar of their house, and he sees the trunk. And he realizes that something is up. His mom didn't go to Singapore like she said she was supposed to. And from that point on, there is this search throughout the novel of who is my mom? What is she doing? Why did she lie to us? What is she trying to accomplish? And it's a story of espionage. It's a story of a search, a story of meaning. And it's gorgeously written. And there are parts of it that are a little difficult to read, but it's definitely worth your time if you are looking for something to sink your teeth into.
And so to lighten the mood a little bit, but not really.
Right, because that one is dark.
But my book that I'm going to talk about is Travis. Now we're starting to echo again. We almost made it the whole episode without you echoing. But my book is going to be Goodbye Days by Jeff Zintner. I love Jeff Zintner. I think he is a fantastic human being. I've had an opportunity to interview him before, and his book, The Serpent King, is one of my top 5 all-time favorite books ever. It's an ugly cry book. You have to read The Serpent King if you haven't. But I read his one that came out after The Serpent King called Goodbye Days, and this is definitely a secondary book. This is not to be read with elementary kids, but it's a really powerful story about 4 boys who were friends, and 3 of them pass away at the beginning of a book in a car wreck. And the reason, the whole book takes place about the one boy who survived. He texted them while they were driving, and they went and they got a wreck while responding to his text. And so the whole book revolves around texting and driving, and some of the other families wanting to pursue legal action and putting this other boy in jail for negligent homicide, and just this whole idea of, you know, what are we guilty of? How do we forgive ourselves? How do we make the right choices? And just being able not to judge ourselves too harshly over things that are sometimes out of our control, but not always. And it was just a really powerful book. Just that made me stop and really think about a lot of things. And I think with kids who are driving, this book is a great conversation starter to just talk about the perils of texting and driving, or just friendship and all that kind of stuff. So great book, Goodbye Days by Jeff Zintner. Do you have any others, Travis?
No, I'm good. But let me just say that Jeff Zintner with The Serpent King, if you've not read that book, that is one that you need to order. Go out and buy right now. It's like it should be moved as far to the top of your list as possible.
But you have to buy Kleenex when you buy the book at the same time, because you will bawl your eyes out not once, but probably 2 or 3 times. And it's not one of those that you just cry at the end. No. You're going to be crying throughout the book. So you're going to need some Kleenex, but it is a soul-crushing but uplifting book at the same time. And so, I mean, that book is just amazing. I could talk about that book all day long. That and Allegedly and The Hate You Give. I mean, those are some of our favorite books, and I know we could sit and talk all day long. But Travis and I know we hadn't done a Sparks in the Dark episode in a while, so we wanted to come back on and do another episode with you guys. Oh my gosh, Travis, your computer. We're going to get this echo thing fixed one time. I'm buying headphones for Travis. He can't find his headphones. Because I am echoing on your computer, Travis. Maybe you can just turn me down so I can't hear myself. Okay, so Travis and I know we haven't done an episode in a while, and I can still hear myself hardcore. But now the echo is getting worse. Travis, can you just turn the sound off on your computer while I try to do the wrap up? My ADHD doesn't allow me to do the talking while I can hear stuff. I'm so sorry. But we know we haven't been on in a while, so we wanted to come on and share some of our favorite books with you, and just kind of talk to you about what we've been up to and just kind of say hello.
You want me to say something now?
Well, I mean, I can still hear myself echoing, but go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, I have headphones, but I left them in the other room. I didn't even think to get them.
Every episode.
So, yeah, I know it's been a while since you and I have had a Sparks in the Dark episode. I'm so glad that we were able to come on today. And, you know, if we can leave our listeners with anything, it's how important it is that you continue to read. That even though we're in the summer months, this is a great time for you not just to rejuvenate, you know, reclaim some of the energy that we all lose over the course of a school year, but then, you know, dig into some books, read something that you can share with students, read something that is going to enhance you professionally, something that's going to build you up. And so that when you walk in on day one, you've got a stack of books that you can share with readers and say, these books will change you as a reader.
Excellent. So we hope you all join us for our next episode. Make sure you follow us on Facebook.com/SparksInTheDark, but it's Sparks with no A. So check us out on Facebook, and then follow Travis and I on social media for all the latest updates over Sparks in the Dark. We hope you pick up the book and share your reading lives on social media with the hashtag SparksInTheDark. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Goodbye, everybody.